If you run a company or manage a team, hiring qualified people quickly can make or break your business. Imagine a position of need going unfilled for weeks or even months because you just can't seem to find the right candidate. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. Indeed sponsored jobs help you stand out and hire fast. With sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates so you can reach the people you want faster. This makes a huge difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Plus, there's no monthly subscriptions, no long-term contracts. You only pay for results on your job post. Just in the last minute that I've been talking to you, 23 hires were made on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. Now that is fast. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. Listeners will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/BWN. Go to Indeed.com/BWN right now to support this podcast. Indeed.com/BWN. Terms and conditions apply.
Hi, hello. It is Josh Bowe of Pod Maverick After Dark. Hold on, need to check my microphone settings. We're still good. Sorry, StreamYard was telling me my microphone was unplugged, but it is not. I'm here. It is just me, as you can tell, after the Dallas Mavericks escape with a 116-105 win in Dallas, the first home game since the Mavericks traded Luka Doncic to the Los Angeles Lakers, which happened pretty much a week from today. So it's been about 7 days. As you can tell, it's just me for Pod Maverick After Dark. You do not, if you're watching live or listening live or looking at our YouTube feed, you will not see Kirk Henderson next to us. He told me it was okay to share because he did post this on Twitter. Kirk was involved in a car accident earlier this morning. He had every intention of, I don't know if he was actually going to the game, but he was going to go to the arena and hang out with the fans, with the kind of fan demonstration, protest, whatever you want to call it, that was happening before the game. Had every intention of being on the podcast, but obviously real life and health, his personal health and everything comes first. I have talked with him. He is okay. He went to he is home. He's resting. So, he's going to be fine, but he obviously needs to take this podcast off today. So it's just going to be me. So I apologize. I know this is a huge game and there's so much to talk about. And I know you guys are excited to talk about a lot. I'm not going to be able to do a live show right afterwards. And I know I bring a different energy than Kirk does, and I know that I might not be able to match the same emotions that you guys are feeling after watching this game, but I'm going to do my best. We're going to talk about this game. I think the first part of the podcast, we're going to talk about the game. Like, let's just talk about the game, what happened on the floor. Obviously, a ton to talk about because the Mavericks basically got the full Anthony Davis experience speed run in one single game. So there's a lot to talk about. And then we'll take a quick break. We'll get our advertisers in there some love. And then we'll talk about everything else around the game, what happened before the game and all that stuff. So first, the game. The Mavericks won 116-105. They have won 2 games in a row against 2 of the best 5 or 6 teams in the NBA, I would say. Beating Boston on Thursday. Now you beat the Rockets, who entered today 4th in the Western Conference. Um, Pretty impressive. And it was probably one of the most impressive debuts for a Maverick ever. Second most. I believe Anthony Davis's 26 points were the second most for a Maverick in their debut game. And he had the opportunity to, he could have had the opportunity to do more, but he was hurt. So before we get to that, though, like I said, it was the full Anthony Davis experience. So let's start from the beginning and make our way there. Mavericks opened the first quarter, outscore the Rockets 33-20. They're off to the races. I think Anthony Davis had 14 and 8 in the first quarter alone. He was absolutely dominant. The energy in the building was terrific. Anyone that was worried about Mavericks fans taking this out on the players who had nothing to do with this Luka trade, those fears went unfounded. The arena was absolutely jacked for this game. There were no boos for Davis at all. Like I think most of us expected. I was never expecting the environment inside the arena to get ugly, unless the game got ugly, then maybe. But I think they were always going to at least give them a chance to start the game. First play of the game is Davis getting double teamed in the post, throwing a lob to Daniel Gafford, and that kind of just set the tone. It definitely helped that this Rockets matchup is tailor-made for Anthony Davis to dominate. He's played well against them before. The Rockets typically they play Alperen Sengun as their lone big. No Jabari Smith, who is their other four-man. And that's a big difference for them right now. So they basically started 4 perimeter players, and then Sengun, who's not really a great defender, does well within the Rockets scheme, but he's easy to isolate. And Davis just punished Sengun. I mean, absolutely punished him. When the Rockets then switched, if Sengun wasn't guarding him, then Amen Thompson, who's awesome, or Dylan Brooks, it's still smaller players. And Davis was physically the most dominant big man on the floor when the game started and through most of the first half. He was hitting post-up jumpers. He was driving from the free throw line extended. He made 2 3-pointers. He had a bunch of assists, passing out of double teams. And that was just on the offensive end. And then the defensive end, he was incredible. He had 3 blocks. I think all of them were in the first half. The Mavericks had an astounding 18 blocks in this game. It would have been pretty crazy to see them lose a game with 18 blocks. And you saw the vision. You saw the vision in the first half. And it was similar to the vision the Mavericks had in the NBA Finals, where the Mavericks were bigger, meaner, badder, more athletic than their opposition, which even with Luka last year in the playoff run, we saw that. If you remember in that Clippers playoff series, the Mavericks physically dominated that Clippers team in that first round win with Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford and PJ Washington and Derek Jones Jr. The size, the length, and the athleticism was something that it's a point. It's a point of the Nico Harrison vision of how he wants to win games, even when it doesn't work. His first move is some of his first moves as a Mavericks GM was signing JaVale McGee and trading for Christian Wood. The guy very much is obsessed with having size as a strength. Now they've just found the right size. And you saw glimpses of that dominance from the playoff run in this first half, where you've got PJ and you've got Gafford and you've got Anthony Davis, and then you got Najee Marshall coming off the bench, and you got Max Christie coming off the bench. The Mavericks just felt like physically a different level than this Rockets team, which is saying something because this Rockets team is extremely athletic. Amen Thompson might be the best athlete in the history of the NBA, and the Mavericks were dominating that first half through size and physicality and athleticism. So it just goes to show how good Anthony Davis is. It goes to show just the potent combo of that big man front court. You saw what it looks like when a team cannot match up physically with that too big lineup. It can cause some problems for opposing teams. And the Mavericks were defensively dominating the game. That offensively they were running things through Davis, and Davis was making shots, which is also huge. He hasn't been shooting the ball very well. He's been scoring in the paint, but in terms of his actual jump shot, that really hasn't been consistent since the bubble. He's been basically like a 30% or less shooter from 3 since the bubble. Made 2 3. If he's making threes, game over NBA. Like that just hasn't been a consistent part of his game ever. But if he's making threes, you're never gonna stop this guy. So again, it worked. And the Mavericks built this big lead in the first half with Kyrie Irving not even making a bucket. I think he was 0 for 6 in the first half or 0 for 5. So again, you saw the vision. You saw the vision in the first half. Be bigger, be meaner, be badder than the other team, be physical, be athletic. to the point where it's hard to match. So then what Houston comes out with in the second half is they match it. They match the size. They start Steven Adams and Sengun in the third quarter. And the third quarter, the Rockets kind of whipped the Mavericks' ass. They outscored them 33-24. They cut down the lead from, I think it was about 20 or 18. They got it all the way down to 2, with the Rockets shooting for the lead in the third quarter at one point. Dylan Brooks missed a 3-pointer when it was 73-71 Mavericks. And then Dallas was able to hold on. You saw now there were kind of two parts of the third quarter. There was a part where Davis was healthy because Davis did get hurt in the third quarter and didn't return. But the lead was already dwindling before that because the Rockets matched Dallas's size and kind of neutralized some of the advantages Dallas had with the Davis, Daniel Gafford front court. With Steven Adams and Sengun, it meant that Anthony Davis did not have anyone to bully in the front court. He went after Steven Adams a few times, came up short on some post-ups and missed a jump hook, I remember. Did not have as much easier time as scoring the ball as opposed to the first half when he was just physically dominating Sengun. And that stalled everything else because now you kind of realize, like, okay, if our bigs aren't dominating the game, the Mavericks don't have the playmaking and the offensive creation to compensate now with this Luka injury. Because you saw Kyrie struggle, you saw you saw Clay struggle. Obviously, PJ Washington got hurt before halftime, sprained his ankle, didn't return, didn't look great. He went straight to the locker room. And when an ankle sprains are funny things, they're things that guys can come back from really fast, or they can keep you out for a few weeks. The fact that he was ruled out so quickly, I mean, he left, I think, with like a minute left in the first quarter or in the second quarter, and then he was ruled out, I think, right before halftime started. So to me, that he's at least missing a game, I would think, but who knows? But that's not a great sign that he was ruled out so quickly. So the Mavericks were already playing at a disadvantage in the second to start the third quarter because of that. The Rockets defensively had a little bit of an easier time with Max Christie in the starting lineup, although Christie's a great player with good physical size and length. But the tide was turning because the big lineup was neutralizing Anthony Davis's effectiveness, and that has nothing to do with PJ Washington being on the floor or not. Personally, then Davis gets hurt, and the way he reacted before I saw the replay, I agreed with the Mavs broadcast that said, it looked like he just maybe got hit below the belt, and then you see the replay, and it was a non-contact injury. He's just coming back from an abdominal strain. He's holding his lower body area. Have abdominal strain is connected to groin injuries. Not good. Not good that he misses the rest of the game. Not good that it was a non-contact injury. I'm not a doctor, but I would not be surprised if we did not see Anthony Davis again until after the All-Star break, which that's kind of it, right? That's Anthony Davis in a nutshell, was this game. There are times on the floor where he looks like the greatest basketball player on the planet. Then there are times when he struggles, and like we saw in the third quarter where the matchups weren't to his advantage and he struggled in the third quarter. Then he gets hurt. Like that's kind of why, if you wanted to be negative about this trade that the Mavericks made, Luka for Anthony Davis, regardless of what Luka says, is that Anthony Davis has not consistently stayed healthy for most of his career. He has the last 2 years. But yeah, that's just the risk. Looks like Robbie Lewis is in the chat. Going to share this. Looks like Kid post game saying, "Kid on Davis. I guess he's all right. We'll see how he feels tomorrow." Not necessarily a winning endorsement. I guess he's all right could mean a variety of things. I mean, if he, all right relative to he didn't suffer an injury that requires surgery, but I can't imagine Davis is playing before the All-Star break. If he does, I'd be very surprised. We're about a week till the All-Star break. Let's see. But we'll see. That's just the risk, though. That's the risk of trading for Anthony Davis. Is he historically has not been able to stay on the floor. The Mavericks have gotten lucky with some of these guys. Kyrie, historically, before he got to Dallas, was not able to stay on the floor. Past all the off-court stuff, before all that stuff happened, he missed a lot of games due to injury, and he's been relatively healthy for most of his Mavericks tenure, although he's missed some games. So we'll see if the Mavericks can get Anthony Davis upright, but they basically need him back as soon as possible. Hopefully they didn't rush him back to quell some of the fan noise going into this game. I would hate to think that he was still a little bit hurt going into this game. But also he looked great in the first. Like he didn't look physically compromised, so might just be unlucky. But also, he's been consistently getting hurt. So now we talk about the rest of the game, and now you got the fourth quarter, and basically the Mavericks did a really good thing is that they got the lead up to about 10 or 12 early in the fourth before the Rockets really could put the screws on the Mavericks before Anthony Davis left the game. And I think that was the key to the win. The fact that before Davis went hurt, I think right before he got hurt, they kind of pushed it up to like 8 or 9 points. He gets hurt. They go into the fourth. Rockets make a little push, and then Dallas gets the lead up to about 12 with like 10 minutes left. The fact that the Mavericks were able to keep a double-digit lead when Davis got hurt, like right when he got hurt, because if this was a 2 or 3 point game when Davis got hurt, I don't know if the Mavericks win. I think they built the lead just big enough before Davis got hurt. They basically, war of attrition, just rode this game out to the end of the fourth quarter. And the Rockets just didn't have enough time, committed too many self-inflicted turnovers or errors, not just turnovers. They smoked maybe 2 or 3 layups in the fourth quarter. They had maybe 2 or 3 turnovers in transition that looked like sure scoring opportunities. And you were trying to come back from a 20-point deficit, 10-point deficit near the start of the fourth quarter. You could not give away possessions like that. You can't miss layups. You can't turn over good scoring opportunities. And I don't know if the Mavericks did anything particularly well in the fourth quarter, besides they made some baskets that came off not necessarily the best process, but they made some shots. Max Christie made a huge 3-pointer. They got to the free throw line a ton in the fourth quarter, which I guess was good to see. I thought the Rockets, they went back to big ball even after Davis went hurt in the fourth. I thought that was actually to the Mavericks' advantage because the Rockets could not get a stop. They could not get consistent stops down the stretch. The Mavericks were either making their first shot, getting an offensive rebound, or making the second chance scoring opportunity, which I think they had second chance points. I don't have the number in front of me, but it was I think it was pretty well in the Mavericks' advantage. I can't remember. Maybe it was the Rockets. But in the fourth quarter, the Mavericks had some good second chance scoring opportunities. They got to the free throw line again a ton. The Mavericks shot 34 free throws today, and I feel like 10 or 12 of them came in the fourth quarter alone. So the Mavericks got to the line. I felt like the one thing they did do well in the fourth quarter, even without Davis, is when the Rockets went back to Sengun and when they went back to Steven Adams, the big bully ball. They spread them out with Najee at the 4. They had to go small because PJ and Anthony Davis were hurt. And they got Sengun guarding a little bit in space. And I don't think they were able to get string enough stops together consistently, even when the Mavericks had some pretty bleak possessions in the fourth quarter. I think they spread the floor out. They got that 2 big lineup on their heels a couple of times, and they were able to score just enough buckets to win the game. I mean, this is a kind of game where I think if they played 5 quarters, the Mavericks would have lost. So they built up just a big enough lead to pull off the game. I got a commenter Ben. Is Kirk busy screaming into a pillow about AD? I would love to hear his Anthony Davis thoughts, but yeah, like I said, he was in a car accident earlier today, not to bear trap you. And he's not going to be on the podcast tonight, but he's okay. He's okay. Don't get too sad. He's okay. So he's at home. He's doing okay. We'll talk to Kirk soon enough. So yeah, that was the game. And again, you saw the full experience. You saw Anthony Davis looking like the best player on planet Earth. You saw him struggling in the third when the matchups don't go his way, and then you saw him get hurt. That's his career. I mean, that is honestly his career. I think something that was pretty fun in the first half, at least, was I thought the Mavericks were the one thing I was, I'm going to be writing about this more, I think. But the one thing I was worried about, I was actually more worried about the Anthony Davis, Daniel Gafford, basically the big ball lineups, more than I was worried about Anthony Davis at the 5. And personally, I haven't watched a ton of Anthony Davis, so I don't know. And I had some Matt Moore, HP Basketball, sent me some messages, and he was kind of tweeting about this during the game. He's watched way more Anthony Davis than I have, and I know he's Mavericks public enemy number 1, but hear me out. He watches a lot of basketball. He made up a good point talking about how Anthony Davis at the 5 kind of like makes sense on paper, but when you think about what Anthony Davis is good at, it actually makes more sense to play him with another center because he does such a good job when he has a mismatch. He's a good mismatch hunter. And when he plays the 5 and he's being guarded by another bigger player, another center, it takes away some of what he's good at in terms of his quickness and his athleticism and being able to score in the paint. And you saw that. I thought you saw that tonight. The fact that he got to play the 4 meant that he was either being guarded by a smaller player at the 4, or he was being guarded by Sengun, who's not a good defensive center, I don't think. So yeah, him being able to bully ball 4s because the Mavericks are playing another center, forcing teams to make the tough decisions of, do we put our center on Davis and then the Mavericks center is unchecked in the paint? Or do you keep your center on Gafford or Lively and then you put a smaller forward or wing on Anthony Davis who can bully them in the post? And I thought you saw that in the first quarter, Davis exploiting that very well. And then transitioning into Davis at the 5 with bench units, I thought also looked great, because I think Davis at the 5 is still good. But in these bench units, it was really good. And I thought Najee at the 4 coming off the bench with Davis at the 5, that's a really good bench lineup. I liked that the Mavericks kept Najee coming off the bench even when PJ got hurt. I think Najee shooting, even though he made 2 out of 3 threes today, I think his skill set makes more sense coming off the bench, being able to play the 4 with more open spacing with Davis at the 5, because Najee is such a slasher and loves to drive and score. I think having Davis at the 5, him coming off the bench, having that more 5-out or closer to 5-out spacing helps his floater game. Meanwhile, if you replace PJ with him in the starting lineup, Max Christie's a better shooter. So I think that makes more sense for that lineup. So I think the Mavericks have a lot of lineup flexibility. And I thought you saw some of that in the first half when everyone was healthy. Now on the other side of it, not everyone's healthy. They had some PJ and Anthony Davis. It looks like they're at least missing a game or so. So that's the other side of it. That's the devil's advocate. It might look really awesome when they're all healthy, but can they stay healthy? And I don't know. And I'm a little, these next few games are going to be pretty tough if they don't have both of those guys. So I think I don't know what to say. You want to say this one about as well as it could have in terms of Davis's production, which it did, but then he gets hurt. So I think if you are a Mavericks fan that's upset about the trade, I think at least in the first half tonight, you at least saw the vision of how it could work and how the Mavericks can not only still be a competitive team, but can still be a contender. And this team did look like a contender in the first half. That's for sure. But you also saw the other side of it. You saw why it could work and why it couldn't work, which is kind of ridiculous for one single game that you got to kind of see both sides of the coin. But that's the way it is. First half, you saw why it can work. Third quarter, fourth quarter, you saw why it might not. So that's the game. Talked about 20 minutes. No, we didn't. There's way more players I could talk about. Max Christie had 23 points. He was awesome. He got to the free throw line 10 times. Kyrie Irving was better in the second half where he finally made some shots. Clay made some shots. Got to the bucket a lot, which was kind of interesting. I feel like he made more 2-pointers tonight than he has in like the last 2 butts. And the bench looked good. With Najee having 16 on 10 shots. We obviously already talked about Max Christie. Dinwiddie made 3 of 3 from 3. He was good in his limited amount of time. So yeah, good win. Concerns about the injuries. If those guys are out for a decent amount of time, I think it's going to be tough for the Mavericks to string together more wins. But we'll see where they go from there. So I'm going to take a quick break. I'm going to insert some ads. And then we're going to come back and talk and wrap this show up. And we're going to talk about everything else that wasn't the game. We're going to talk about what was going on outside the arena before the game. We're going to talk about some of the storylines that popped up there. And I want to give some thoughts on some of the hot button talking points that were coming up before this game even tipped off. So bear with us. For those of you listening on our audio stream after the fact, you're going to listen to some ads, and we'll be right back after this break.
This episode is brought to you by Squarespace. Squarespace is the all-in-one website platform for entrepreneurs to stand out and succeed online. Whether you're just starting out or you're managing a growing brand, Squarespace makes it easy to create a beautiful website, engage with your audience, and sell anything from products to content to time, all in one place and all on your terms. Introducing Design Intelligence from Squarespace, combining 2 decades of industry-leading design expertise with cutting-edge AI technology to unlock your strongest creative potential. They've also got Squarespace Payments. That's the easiest way to manage your payments all in one place with Squarespace. Onboarding is fast and simple, and you can get started with just a few clicks and start receiving payments right away. You can also connect major social and multimedia accounts to your website with just a few clicks as icons, direct links, or embedded feeds, so you can build that visitor trust while updating content only where you need it. Head to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, squarespace.com/bluewire to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain.
Okay, guys, we're back. First half of the podcast, we talked about the game itself, kind of how they speed run the Anthony Davis experience in one game. That's kind of the one sentence summary of this game for the Mavericks. Now we're going to talk about everything else. I don't want to talk about this stuff too much because I don't like talking about this stuff that much because it's not as fun. I like talking about the games. That's why I do this. I don't want to talk about the noise. I want to talk about the games. So obviously a large contingent, somewhere a guesstimate of around 200 fans got together before the game tipped off. I think it was probably fans started trickling in around noon, 12:30. Say before the game started, the crowd grew to about 200 people. Just people, it was basically protests showing their emotions about being upset that the Mavericks traded Luka Doncic. The fan base is still not recovered from it, even with, I think, the first half performance tonight. This is the type of move for fans that they're just not going to get over it that quickly. They might not ever get over it. We know some people that reached out to us. They're like, I just don't want to watch anymore, even if the team still wins games. I just can't handle it. And the fans gave a demonstration. They had signs. They were chanting. The people brought the coffins back out. And there are two things about it. One, I'm glad that it stayed the way it stayed and nothing too silly happened, although I never really thought that was going to happen. And then the other thing is I'm glad the American Airlines Center security and the Dallas police that were there on hand didn't escalate the situation any further. I'm glad they didn't antagonize the fans into making it a worse situation than it could have been, because we have certainly seen countless times that happened before, where somewhat peaceful demonstrations turn ugly because of police presence. So, I'm glad that those two things didn't react well. I saw a really funny note from a fan that they brought the casket and the police had like the bomb sniffing dogs sniff it and then let them go. So it was like, yeah, they got to do their job. No one was turned away as far as I'm concerned. Signs weren't confiscated outside the arena. So yeah, that's a part of it. And that's going to continue to be a part of this story. Then when the game shifted into the arena, it didn't seem like there was much of a demonstration, but also I heard that the crowd mics were turned way down and the general arena, music and that volume of sound was turned up. Heard from fans that their Fire Nico shirts and Fire Nico t-shirts, and obviously some ones with some expletive words on it were confiscated by American Airlines Center employees. And I understand when it has, expletives on it, when you've got like, F Nico t-shirt, kind of get that one, but kind of a bummer that they took down signs. They took away some shirts that, they just said like Fire Nico or Nico quit or even Nico sucks. That was kind of lame. And I feel like part of it is kind of the Mavericks are creating a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. And now we kind of got to get into what I think was kind of the biggest tizzy of the day. I don't even know if I have I think I've been rate limited by Twitter today. So I can't even pull up the tweet because Twitter is a phenomenal platform right now. Mavericks reporter. So this started the other day. ESPN's Tim McMahon reported that Mavericks security is heightened for this game because the team has received credible death threats to Nico Harrison. Well, sorry. The Mavericks said that they were receiving concerning messaging, death threats to the organization, Nico Harrison, the organization. Me and Kirk personally have seen some stuff as well. Obviously, there are a lot of public tweets with people just being like, fuck Nico, hope you die. I mean, it's not that hard to find this stuff, guys. It's out there on Twitter. We saw people sharing his address And when you get that combination of people sharing an address and sending very scary messages, I don't think it's an unreasonable reaction to be scared or to want more security. And then I'm going to get to the point. I promise I'm going to make a point here. So then we go from that to then Grant Afseth, Mavericks reporter, who you guys might know. Very good reporter, does a lot of he works really hard covering the Mavericks. He does a lot of good work covering the team. He reached out to the Dallas Police Department, and Dallas Police Department's public information officer, which every police department has a public information, usually, at least, maybe not every single one, but at least of the bigger cities, has a kind of basically a PR officer that releases statements to the media or interacts with the media. Grant reached out to them, and their public information, the Dallas PD public information officer, said that they are not investigating any credible threats to Nico Harrison. And that kind of sent everyone over the edge, because now it's like they're lying, how, they're cowards, they're making stuff up. Tim McMahon is lying. The Mavericks are lying. Nico is lying. They're lying to the fan base. They're trying to blame the fans. And I think that got a little out of hand. And I just wanted to say, as unfortunate as it is, I'm speaking from personal experience that what a police department considers a credible threat is different than maybe what me and you and a normal person would consider a threat. For a police department to act, it has to be very explicit. And I know this from very difficult personal experience in the last few months, where I've encountered a situation like this with my family. And also, I have worked in newsrooms with reporters that cover the cops beat and cover, crime and cover city council. And I haven't personally done it because I am not good at it, but I worked in newsrooms with people that did. And I know kind of by osmosis how this stuff works. The Mavericks and Nico could have very well received very scary messages that the police department doesn't consider explicit threats to their safety. Those two things can exist together. So I know this is very emotional. I know this is kind of a difficult thing to talk about, because I know people are like, Tim's lying, and I don't want you to say like Grant's lying. He got a quote from the Dallas Police Department. But I just want you to say both things can be true. That Nico and the Mavericks organization received some messages that they felt were very scary. And then the Dallas Police Department looked at those messages and said, this isn't credible enough for us to act. And when I say that, I'm not trying to say that those messages weren't just like, screw you, Nico, and the Mavericks were concerned for their lives over that. No, like, I'm telling you, the messages for police departments sometimes to act in these situations, the messages sometimes have to say, my name is so-and-so, and I am going to come to your house at 4:00 this afternoon and kill you. If they aren't that explicit, the police department doesn't always act for this kind of stuff. So, and that's not me trying to criticize anyone here. I'm just trying to tell you how it works. That's kind of how it works. So I feel like it's created a lot of hostility within the community, and I understand the Mavericks traded Nico, and that's you're gonna kind of ask for some of this when you do this. So the other part of it, I'll say, having said all what I just said, is that, and I know someone said, but it would still be a report. I didn't get a police report. I don't know if there was a police report for my situation, and it was similar. So maybe it's different. It depends on the police department. I don't know that part of it, but I'm just trying to tell you what I know from experience. Now, having said all that, I think the Mavericks did a bad. And by the way, we've also, me and Kirk have talked to people that work in the Mavericks. Like, there's been some scary things sent to the organization that aren't even involved with this trade. There have been some people that don't even work for the front office, but work for the Mavs, that have had scary messages sent to them or encountered that kind of stuff. So again, it's not, you want to be like, oh, they're just coward. Like, there are levels to this, guys. I'm just trying to be an empathetic human here, because as mad as everyone deservedly should be over this trade, and you're allowed to be emotional about this. It was a big deal. It was, kind of a betrayal to what a lot of fans believe in when they kind of buy into being a pro sports fan. Having said all that, I don't think the Mavericks did a good job in sharing this stuff to the media. Because, like, Kirk's point is that it feels like it's trying to deflect some of the bad PR they've gotten since this trade and maybe put the onus on the fan. It's the fans' fault for taking it too far, and then try to absolve them a little bit of the trade that they made, which I get some of that too. And I honestly, if I were in the Mavericks, I would understand why you're scared. I don't see the benefit of making that stuff public. I don't understand telling that to the media. You know, we had the TNT report on Thursday, then we had Tim McMahon doing a report yesterday. If I were the Mavericks, I would not have talked about this stuff. I would have privately investigated it. I would have reached out to the Dallas Police Department. I would have had them work it and handle their business. I don't see the benefit of making this public, because now all you're doing is, one, you're putting ideas into fans' heads. You know, like, you don't like. I don't think that's good, and you're also riling everyone up. Like, there's a part of me, I don't think fans are going to get over this anytime soon, personally. But publicly, in terms of these public demonstrations and the threats and all this stuff that's really nasty, I think there's a window to this. I really believe it. And I really feel like if the Mavericks privately investigated this stuff and made sure that their team and their organization and the people that work for them are safe, but just not talked about it and not brought it up in public, I really feel like this could have blown over a little bit more. And they could have gotten past this, gotten through it, and then fans could have moved on with their lives, and the team could have moved on with theirs. I don't think throwing people's t-shirts and signs out in the arena helps. Like, you're just pissing those people off more, and you're giving them a reason to stay angry. Just let it out. Let them have it. Obviously, if anyone takes it too far, you take the appropriate measures, but let the fans get their anger out. Let them get it out of their system, and then you move on. Like, when you tell fans they can't wear a t-shirt that says Fire Nico on it in the arena, when you take down their signs that say Fire Nico, do you think the fan reaction is going to be, oh, okay, you're right, I'll stop? No, you're pissing them off, and you're giving them a reason to stay mad. Let them demonstrate themselves in a safe way. Let them get it out of their system, and then you move on. You can't put this chapter to bed if you keep bringing it up. And again, I'm not trying to blame the victim here. I'm just saying, I think for the best interest of the fans and the best interest of the organization is they have to respectfully somehow move on. And I'm not telling not telling the fans to move on. If you still want to be mad about this Luka Doncic trade, as long as you're not being a nuthead about it, you are well within your right to still be heartbroken and still be upset. You can be heartbroken and upset for the rest of your life. It's well within your right. So that's not what I'm trying to say. I'm just trying to say, I think there's a difference between being mad and heartbroken and being a little despondent about your team in your house versus like going to an arena and bringing signs and putting on a shirt that says F Nico or whatever. And I think the Mavericks could have gotten to a point where they moved past the public demonstration part of it if they just would have let the fans just get that out of their system. I don't think it was smart to bring up the death threats in public. I think that just exasperated things a little bit more. But I also think they're well within their right to investigate that stuff and make sure that their people feel safe. So that's kind of where I'm at with this. Feel like it's just more gasoline being added to the fire every time. I feel like there's a way that we can at least start talking more about the basketball than we can about all the other stuff off the floor. Now, again, I want to repeat, I'm not trying to invalidate any fans' feelings. I think that you guys are allowed to be as heartbroken and as sad and upset and as angry about this as long as you want, within reason, as long as you're not taking it to a scary place. And you're allowed to feel that way. But the organization is going to move forward because they have to. They're playing games. So yeah, somehow managed to talk for almost 40 minutes by myself. I think this is the longest Pod Maverick I've ever recorded by myself, but there was a lot of stuff to talk about today. I think I got everything out of my system. Hopefully we're able to talk more about the basketball going forward, because I think there are some interesting things that we can take away from this team. Not going to do a live show. Please go to MavsMoneyball.com. We have so much stuff on the site. We've got more stuff coming from this game. We have more kind of emotional columns and reactions coming from our staffers that are going to be going up Sunday and Monday and Tuesday. I plan on trying to get something up on the site and trying to write something for D Magazine this week. Hopefully something on Monday for D Magazine. Hopefully something else for our Mavs Moneyball also next week as well. And we're just going to keep going through it. We got to talk about this. It's not going away. So again, Mavericks beat the Houston Rockets 116-105. This is Pod Maverick After Dark. This is Josh Bowe, one of the editors of MavsMoneyball.com, one of the co-hosts of Pod Maverick. We wish Kirk well, hopefully for a speedy recovery. I think he's going to be okay, and I think we'll be talking to him soon, but everyone wish Kirk very well. Please be nice to him. Do not yell at him on the internet for the next 48 hours. He could use it. And we'll talk to you guys later. Thanks everyone for joining me. I feel like we got a lot of listeners and there's going to be a lot of eyeballs on us. So we're going to do our best to match the moment and give you guys some good content to listen to and to read. So again, for Pod Maverick, this is Josh Bowe. Mavericks beat the Rockets 116-105. We'll talk to you guys next time.
Do you ever wish you could ask your data anything at any time? How are sales this quarter? How is a specific marketing campaign performing? How is the overall health of the business? With Domo's AI and data products platform, you can. Domo lets your team channel AI and data quickly, securely, and innovatively to deliver measurable insights wherever and whenever you need them. Anyone on your team can use Domo to prepare, analyze, visualize, automate, and distribute data amplified by AI. Domo goes beyond productivity. It's designed to transform your processes and drive real growth, powered by trust, flexibility, and years of expertise in data and AI innovation. Data is hard. Domo is easy. Learn how Domo can help you make smarter moves faster at ai.domo.com. That's ai.domo.com.